My name's Jim Burns. I was born in South Wales, and for as long as I can remember, I've had a pencil or a paintbrush in my hand. The stuff I paint is what you might loosely call the fantastical, I suppose. I can't paint landscapes or vases of flowers or anything like that. It bores me to do that. It's rather too complicated to briefly give you a summation of the process without it sounding very garbled. I mean, you'd have to stand over me for a week or a month watching how I do it to get the full story. And I was really interested in natural history illustration, Victorian stuff, scientific illustration such as like insect artists, painters of the 19th century, the schools of Pre-Raphaelites, the symbolists, where again you're talking about representational art but fantastical subject matter. I did zoology at A level, so I was always interested in and quite knowledgeable about natural history, and it all feeds into the business of trying to create convincing creatures, convincing aliens. That funny guy, this little guy down here. Trying to make little guys like this or like that just look somehow like they just might exist. They might be. Give them enough physical conviction, if you like. Dragons, dragons make no anatomical sense whatsoever. So I tend to refuse to paint them as creatures with 4 legs and a pair of wings, because then the skeleton becomes unmanageable. Those are technically wyverns. They've got back legs for walking about on, but their front legs are their wings, like a bat, really, I suppose, which is the only kind of dragon that makes any real sense to me. There was a comic called the Eagle comic. There was a character on the front of that called Dandare. I just loved what they used to do. I was absolutely fascinated by that kind of art. I followed that experience not by becoming an artist, but principally wanting to become Dandare. And the route to becoming Dandare, pilot of the future as he was called, was to join the RAF. I'm absolutely fascinated by aircraft, I so wanted to fly. And I applied in 1966 for flying training, and nobody thought I would get in. Got into the RAF and wasn't in for very long, only in 18 months, because I wasn't a very good pilot. Positively dangerous, probably. I think it was a group captain was there, something at this party, saying this guy's in the wrong profession, he should be a commercial artist. And I remember thinking to myself, I think we'll be a Harrier pilot, for crying out loud, not a silly artist. But he was kind of right. So then I came out of the RAF, applied to St Martin's up in London, a good college with a great illustration tradition. Basically doing the same old stuff, spaceships and aliens and pretty girls in threatening science fictional situations. I met a writer named Harry Harrison, American science fiction writer who lived in this country. We did a joint project together, a book called Planet Story, and I spent 2 years basically doing the internal illustrations for this sort of, maybe one of the earlier graphic novels. All these, by the way, this isn't my imagination so much as Harry's words. They're very literal. I thought I should give him one. Give him one of the illustrations. And which one would you like, Harry? Guess which one he chose. Oh, it ends with a kiss, of course. Very nice. Hairy Jim. Nearly 40 years ago. Oh, God. This picture here. And he's called Colonel Killing. And that picture got seen by Ridley Scott, the film director, with a view to becoming a concept artist on the film Dune. His production manager announced that the film was off, and I felt tragically, desperately disappointed. But he said, but we've got another film on the go, another one which might interest you, based on a book called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. And I did know the book. I'd read that one, read a lot of Philip K. Dick's stuff, brilliant. And he said, we're going to turn that into a film, and we're going to call it Blade Runner. I took some images with me, some books of stuff, and I was actually in a motel room talking about the project to Ridley Scott, and he hadn't really formulated too much by way of visual ideas at that point. A very visual director, of course. And he was looking through my stuff, and he just happened to come across this particular image. And he looked at that and he thought, I like that vehicle. And what he did was he turned it upside down like that. And he sort of had a close look at this particular vehicle. And he said, that's our police spinner. I thought, of Blade Runner, and that sort of was its earliest incarnation. And I did some more designs based on this for that film. In the end, Sid Mead took the designs on, and he did a lot more and developed the machine a lot further. And I don't really see much of my original police spinner, or this flying ambulance, in the film's police spinner. My wife says otherwise. My wife says yes, you can see the ghost of a hint of a tiny fragment of some bit of my imagination in the one that's in the film. I mean, there's a kind of these motifs here. In the film version, there are these two big rounded bits of engineering at one end of it. I was there for 10 weeks in Hollywood, and I felt like I really made it. Hollywood, for crying out loud, had a whale of a time. Really enjoyed myself. And I thought at that point that's how my career was going to go. I was going to be a kind of concept designer for films. I sort of ran out of steam on it. I was probably working in the wrong medium at the time. These are oil paintings, for crying out loud. Sid Mead came in with his marker pens, like 50 new designs every morning of brilliant car designs and cityscapes and stuff like that, and I just felt a little bit ill-equipped for the particular kind of work. So I came back home. But then through the 80s, what happened was I seemed to get picked up more and more by American publishers. And so a large part of my output in the 1980s were for American publishers, science fiction book jackets. In particular, I did a lot of work for a guy named, or a writer named Robert Silverberg. I did the covers for over 40 of his novels. Then the 90s, the big thing was, and when digital came in really, I thought, I've got to learn how to do this stuff. This is where the future is. And of course it was there, but I mean, in terms of book jacket illustration, you've got to turn out a hell of a lot of digitally painted book jackets to make much of a living out of it, it seems to me. Book jacket work these days, it's young guys who are really good at this stuff and are quick and can turn them out and are trying to build a reputation. But for old guys like me, who prefer painting basically, it's given me an opportunity to get back into doing what I really like, which is painting pictures. So since the late 90s, I would say that there's been a gradual moving away from the commercial world and more to a personal kind of expression. And so in a way, it's brought me back to where I started really, which was painting fantastical stuff for myself. Then I made a living out of it, and now I'm back doing it the way I did at the beginning. So there's still lots of interesting sort of little roads and directions to take in the future. I haven't sort of grown to a halt yet by a long chalk. So yeah, that's the way it's going to progress. As long as I've got my eyesight and my hands don't become too arthritic, they're a bit at the moment. Unlike my hips. Yeah, more of the same.